Yo. What's up, YouTube? Neil here. I thought I'd do a real quick lesson here. Basically, the concept is that every single note can work over any chord or any bass note. So, like, a lot of times when you're learning guitar, you'll learn these shapes, and oftentimes you'll learn them as modes. So you'll let's say in the key of, I don't know, C major, since that's all the white keys on piano. We'll start there. You learn this, and this is your Ionian shape, or whatever, and this is Dorian, and this is Phrygian, and this is Lydian, and so on and so forth. And so you're just locked into these shapes, these hand shapes. But I really think that while it's important to learn the neck of the guitar, that's one way to learn the neck. So it's, everything helps. I really don't think that's a good way of actually approaching playing, because you don't want to be playing like that. You don't want to have a C major chord and just playing solely in this position or whatever. You don't want to just be doing that the whole time. And then when it switches to this chord, you don't want to go way up here or whatever, to a different position. You don't want to have to do that every single time. It's very mechanical and it's not musical. So I really think it's better to approach it first of all, any note works. So, for instance, what I mean by that is, say you have a C major chord. Technically, any note in the chromatic scale, which is any note in basically Western music, any of the 12 tones that we have, 12 main tones, not counting microtones and all that, any of those can work. So, for instance, over the C major chord, like on a piano, C major would just be all the white keys, for instance. But the black keys aren't off limits necessarily either. Let's look at those, for instance. So if you already know your C major scale, again, white keys on the piano, be, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then back to C. But, let's just take a look at this. If you have a looper or a freeze pedal like I do, that can really help a lot. But I'll just freeze that sound, just that C major. All right, so instead of starting, we'll start in C, okay? So that's just the octave, right? Really the most, probably the strongest note that you have. I like to think of these as colors. They're different colors, and that's a really kind of a bland color, but it works because it's so bland, in a way. And it's, it's certainly a strong note. It's a very strong note. You can resolve on that note, and it's perfectly resolved. Let's try this. Okay, so that's outside of the C major scale, for instance. That's a C sharp or D flat, however you want to look at it. But that could just be a flat 9. This could be implying a C dominant flat 9 chord. That's perfectly fine. And then this is just a regular 9, a ninth interval. So that's a C major ninth now. This is kind of implying a sharp 9. So that's if there's a dominant sharp 9 or something like that. But also you can have major sharp 9. That's a chord. And we have a major third. And then we have perfect fourth, sharp 4. This is a fifth, very strong note. Once again, fifth. Flat 6. We have just a regular 6, the 13th, whatever, same thing. We have the flat 7. We have a major 7. And then we're back to a C. All of those tones are actually perfectly fine over this chord. So the key is to just know, to get used to those sounds in your head of each note, just playing them over and over again over just this one chord, for instance, could help a lot. And you can do this over any chord quality, minor, major, or dominant, or whatever. And the key is to really get the color of that sound in your head, because ultimately these are colors. These are just different colors, like you're painting with colors. And like your strongest colors over this chord would be that C, that root note. So C, and then this third, which is an E, and then this fifth, which is a G. Those are like your strongest colors, but all the other ones can be kind of added colors, extensions. They can actually make it a lot less bland sounding by adding them in. So like any note in the major scale can work. Even this fourth, which is it's an unstable note over that chord. It seems to want to resolve down to here or up to here. But even that's legitimate. It's perfectly legitimate, you know. That's it's just a suspended sound, a suspended fourth. So the point is that since all of these tones are available, it doesn't really matter what finger position I'm using. I could use a position up here for Phrygian. Or whatever, you know. Us guitarists get too locked into positions. A minor. Whatever. Like, you can use any position you want to if you know what the colors are that you're using, and that's the most important thing. So I would really just practice, like, first of all, just through the C major scale, like over this chord, just practicing, just really hearing all the notes in the C major scale, and then also all the in-between notes, hearing how that sounds on that chord, hearing this sounds on that chord, etc., etc. And then I would do this, like if you're going to stay in the same key, I would do this over every chord in that key, every basic chord. So like, you know, I would do this over D minor, E minor, sorry, F major, and then G major, G dominant basically, A minor, C flat half diminished, or actually B half diminished, since there's no need to call it a C flat. I don't know what I was thinking. But anyways, the point being, you do this over every one of those chords. So same thing over whatever, over D minor, for instance. And I'll be doing the same thing. I can actually do it from the same position. I can just kind of go straight through the scale. I'm really just absorbing the sound, and it's really beautiful, actually. It sounds beautiful, you know? You can really hear the colors. It's kind of hard to explain that because I think it's a little bit different to everyone's ears, maybe. But those are all different, for sure, different colors. It's your artistic license to use them how you want to use them. But the point is that none of those are off limits. And again, in between notes, once again, that's kind of dark sounding to me. Pretty dark sounding. And again, that's kind of for this, that's a sharp 9 sound. What else? That's a pretty dark sound as well. I often find that those in-between notes, like the leftover notes in the chromatic scale after you play them, like through this diatonic scale, those leftover notes are often darker, but they do have a place. You know, darker colors have a place. So what I would next do is, once you're done with that, once you've gone through the all 7 chords that I just outlined in the major scale, and you do that with each one of them. I think what a good exercise is next, a good exercise is to take like a progression. It's almost kind of reversing this process. You could even just take the progression of just going straight through those 7 chords if you want to. You know, just... and just kind of do it for each one of those. But the point is you're actually just going to take one note. So now I'm just going to think of one note. Let's say I'm just going to make it a C. Wrong note. That's the wrong note. So let's say I just make it that one. I'll go through a C chord. Of course, it's very strong sounding over that C. And then I'll go up the scale once again. I'm harmonizing the scale with chords. And if you don't know how to harmonize a scale, what the 7 chords are in a scale, well, it's exactly the same thing as the modes. I mean, this is Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian, and then back where we started. But yeah, major, C major, D minor, E minor, and I'm hearing how that note interacts each time with these chords. F major, and that's over G major. It's kind of implying G dominant, you know, the 5 chord, 6 chord, which is a A minor, B half diminished, not C flat. Don't call it C flat in this case. And C major. So you can hear how that tone reacts to each one of those, and then what you can do is you can just keep raising it up the scale. So now it's a D note, and I'm going to do the same thing. You can do the same thing with just a scale. I could just do the bass notes, like, and just hear how it's reacting to each of these notes. So now I'm just going up the C major scale while holding that one note. And so you can keep doing this. You know, next note would be this E note, and next note would be this, and you just keep holding those notes. Again, I have a freeze pedal, so that makes it easy, but for me. But yeah, if you have a freeze or a looper, that's really pretty crucial for this exercise. Otherwise, you're going to have to find a way to finger these, which could get kind of messy if you're trying to finger 2 different notes at the same time, moving one and keeping the other the same. But the point is just to get it into your ear, get it kind of locked into your ear. And if you don't have a looper or a freeze pedal, you can also do this with the open strings. You won't be able to get every note in the scale that way. You're only going to get 5 notes. You're going to get E and A. You're going to get a D, a G, and a B. But those are all in the major scale. That's at least 5 out of 7. So that is still helpful. So once you've kind of gotten those sounds in, once you've gotten them into your ears, really locked into your ears, then you can really improvise a lot more freely over chord progressions. And for instance, for me, like if I had like a 2-5-1, because I play jazz a lot, and C major would be D minor to G7 to C major 7. And like I can just picture, like I can put any note on top of those chords. So on and so forth. I can just keep going up the scale that way, and I know that each one of those notes can work. Again, maybe this note this F, would kind of work weird over that C major chord because it's kind of a suspended sound, but it still works too. So there's no wrong notes, is basically what I'm saying. Not even outside of the scale or in the scale. You just have to know how to use those colors. Some of those outside colors, those notes that are outside of the scale, you might find they just really, those colors just don't sound right over certain progressions in certain contexts. And that's fine. And you know, as you play around with these colors, you will find your preferences, and you'll find that you prefer certain colors in certain cases over others. You should find that, because they're all different and distinct. You are hopefully going to be figuring out how to artistically use them. But some of these outside colors might just not be right in certain progressions. But it's better to find that out yourself, hearing it with your own ears, rather than just reading it out of a book. Reading out of a book that it's wrong to play a major seventh over a dominant 7 chord or something. Better to hear it yourself, because it's going to give you a much more intuitive sort of connection, and that's really important. So I hope this helps in some way. I know that this is it has to be kind of a short lesson. There's still a lot more to be said about it, and there are a lot more examples and a lot more exercises that you could go through. But hopefully this helps get you out of that sort of mentality of being locked into these certain shapes and kind of being sort of just chained to it, you know, almost. Because I think sometimes guitar players do that, and things end up sounding very unnatural, and their improvisation doesn't flow together well, and it just ends up sounding like they're playing shapes rather than making melodies and making music, which is really the goal here. Not to quote Alan Holdsworth in that cheesy instructional video, but the goal is, I can't even do his accent. The goal is to make music. I mean, music is a language we're speaking here. So, anyways, hope that helps. Hopefully I'll have another video on here soon, and sooner than 2 years from now. Till next time.